Have you ever looked at a place you built and felt a chill, a whisper that the soul of it was sick, that beneath the familiar surface a rot was spreading, fed by the very person you trusted to protect it? This is the story of a man who walked into his own creation and found it had become a house of quiet fear. Darius hadn't worn a suit in 3 days. This morning he chose a faded baseball cap and jeans, thin at the knees. He drove across Fresno not as the owner, but as a ghost. The bell above the door of Holloway's home-style diner chimed its same tired note. He caught it, pushed inside, and became nobody. He slid into a corner booth, the vinyl seat split at the seam, spilling its foam heart. He'd meant to fix that. Now he was grateful for its shabbiness. It made him invisible. He didn't need a menu. His order was a ritual of simplicity: dry toast, black coffee, no frills, just truth. His eyes, however, were working. They swept the room, not as a customer, but as a surgeon searching for the source of a fever. Morning light cut through the grease-smudged windows. Construction workers huddled over mugs. An old man turned a newspaper page with a dry crackle. A young mother shushed a fussing child. The surface was calm water. But Darius knew how to read the current underneath. Behind the service window, the cook moved with a frantic, jarring rhythm. Plates hit the pass-through too hard. A dishwasher lumbered past, the tub in his arms clanging like a death knell. The air didn't smell of home-cooked comfort. It smelled of trapped breath and sweat. Then he saw her, a server. Her uniform was washed so thin the pattern had faded to a memory. Her apron was a map of old stains. Her name tag, crooked, read Janelle. She stood by the coffee station, her back to the room, shoulders curved inward. She took a deep, visible breath, her ribs expanding against the thin fabric like she was preparing to dive into deep, dangerous water. She turned. Her eyes did a quick, nervous circuit of the dining room. Not looking for customers, she was scanning for threats. Her gaze touched the booths, the windows, and finally, the counter, where a man stood. Darius's blood went still. Carl, the manager he'd hired, the man he'd trusted. Carl wasn't moving. He was planted, arms folded over a chest that seemed to swell with stagnant authority. His beard was unkempt, his eyes 2 dark pits fixed on Janelle's every move. He wasn't supervising. He was overseeing. Janelle approached Darius's booth. Her steps were measured, each one placed with deliberate care, as if the floor might give way. "Morning," she said, the word barely a sigh. "What can I get for you?" "Just toast, coffee if it's fresh." "Always fresh," she replied, a line delivered too fast, too rehearsed. She spun away, her hand clenched white around her order pad. Darius watched her go. He watched the subtle hunch of her spine. He watched the way Carl's head turned, a vulture tracking wounded prey. And in that moment, Darius Holloway knew. He hadn't come for breakfast. He'd come to a crime scene, and the victim was his own dream. The coffee Janelle brought him was good, strong and hot, but it tasted like ash in his mouth. Every sip was filtered through the tension thickening the air. He watched her navigate the room. It was a performance of contained terror. She poured coffee for the old man. Her hand trembled, just a faint vibration that made the liquid shimmer. "Sorry," she whispered, though she hadn't spilled a drop. She apologized again when she handed him a napkin. "Sorry." 2 apologies for nothing, a language of ingrained fault. Darius felt a cold knot form in his gut. Someone had taught this woman that her very existence was an inconvenience. Her eyes, again and again, flicked to the counter, to Carl. It wasn't a glance, it was a gauge. She was measuring the temperature of his mood, the distance of his storm. Carl met her look every time, his expression never changing, a flat, dispassionate ownership. Darius kept his face neutral, a mask of harmless hunger. When Janelle returned with his toast, setting the plate down with both hands as if it were fine china, he tried a smile. "Thank you. Take your time." "I'm set." She nodded, a mechanical jerk of her chin. Her eyes darted past his shoulder. Darius didn't need to turn to know Carl was watching. "Everything all right this morning?" Darius asked, keeping his voice soft, a gentle probe. The question seemed to physically strike her. Her lips parted, but sound died in her throat. Her eyes, for a fleeting second, screamed a truth her mouth wouldn't release. "Just a regular day," she finally breathed. The lie was so fragile it hung between them, transparent and aching. "Janelle, orders waiting." Carl's voice cut across the diner. It wasn't a call, it was a lash. The words were ordinary, but the tone was pure venom, a public reminder of who held the whip. Janelle flinched, a full-body jolt she couldn't suppress. "Coming!" Her reply was too quick, too high. She fled. Darius watched Carl track her retreat, and there, for just a moment, the manager's mouth twitched. Not a smile. Something worse. A flicker of pleasure. He enjoyed the jump. He fed on the fear. Darius leaned back, the toast untouched. This wasn't mismanagement. This was predation. His diner, a place meant for warmth and community, had been turned into a cage, and the keeper was a man he'd given the keys. He needed to see more. He needed to understand the depth. Finishing his coffee, he became a statue of observation. He saw the young dishwasher shrink as he passed Carl's domain. He saw the cook's shoulders tense when Carl's shadow fell across the kitchen doorway. This poison wasn't isolated. It had seeped into the walls, into the lungs of everyone who worked here. Darius had built this place to give people a haven. Instead, he'd furnished their prison. The weight of that failure settled on him, heavy and cold. But beneath the guilt, an older, fiercer emotion began to burn, a need to reclaim what was his, to free what was trapped. Janelle moved through her shifts like a ghost haunting her own life. Darius watched her wipe down a nearby table, her strokes quick and anxious. Her eyes kept lifting, checking the counter, waiting for the next blow to fall. He couldn't let her fade away. Not yet. "Janelle!" he called, just loud enough for her to hear. She startled, a deer in headlights, then drifted closer. "Yes? Something else?" "You look worried," Darius said, his voice a low rumble of concern. "You sure you're okay?" Her fingers tightened on the bus tub she carried, knuckles bleaching white. "It's nothing. I'm fine." But the last word cracked, a tiny fault line revealing the seismic pressure underneath. Darius reached for his wallet, a small gesture. He pulled out a $10 bill, a simple thank you. He slid it discreetly across the table toward her. Her reaction was instant visceral panic, her whole body locked. "No," she hissed, her eyes wide with genuine fear. "Please, put it away." "It's just a tip," Darius said, confused. "I can't." She shook her head, taking a step back. "If he sees, please, just put it away." Darius slowly retrieved the bill, the motion feeling obscene. "You can't accept a tip?" he asked, the question hanging in the toxic air. She took a shuddering breath, fighting for control. "We're not allowed. Carl, he keeps them all, every dollar. Says it's house policy. If a customer insists, he says we're stealing from him." Darius's jaw tightened. The theft was brazen, ugly. "So he pockets your tips." She gave a tiny, terrified nod, her eyes once more scanning for Carl. "But that's not the worst of it," she whispered. The confession cost her. He saw it in the tremor of her lips. "Tell me," Darius urged, his voice a sheltered space in the storm. "If we argue, if we're slow, if a customer looks unhappy, he punishes us." The words tumbled out now, a desperate whispered torrent. "He cuts our hours, gives us the worst shifts, stands over us and tells us we're worthless. He threatens to fire us, and most of us—" Her voice broke. "Most of us can't afford to be fired." The confession hung between them. Darius saw it all now, the economic trap, the psychological warfare. A single mother, a 5-year-old boy, a paycheck that was both lifeline and leash. "You deserve better than this," Darius murmured, the words thick with a fury he was forcing down. She gave a hollow laugh. "Wanting better doesn't pay the rent." She wiped her hands on her apron, a nervous, endless habit. "Please, just act normal. If he thinks I said anything, he won't touch you, Darius said, the promise slipping out before he could cage it. She blinked, bewildered. Why would you say that? Because I own these walls, he thought. Because your fear is my failure. But he couldn't reveal himself. Not yet. The hawk was still circling. You're not alone, he said instead, locking eyes with her. That's all I can say right now. Confusion and a fragile, desperate hope warred in her expression. She nodded, a barely perceptible movement, and turned away, disappearing into the kitchen's swinging door. Darius was left with the echo of her fear and the burning certainty that his morning of quiet observation was over. The time for witnessing was ending. The time for reckoning was near. And if you're valuing this kind of raw, human truth, consider staying with us. LostBlack is built for stories like this. The card was plain white, unassuming. The only text was a phone number and a single word: management. Darius placed it on the table like a chess move, then waited. Janelle returned, her movements still cautious, but a new curiosity flickered in her exhausted eyes. You need your check? Actually, Darius said, sliding the card toward her, I want you to have this. She stared at it, then at him, suspicion battling exhaustion. What is it? A number, he said. If something happens, if you need real help. I don't understand, she whispered, her fingers hovering over the card. You don't have to, not yet. But Carl's radar was finely tuned to any disruption in his domain. He saw the prolonged contact, the passing of an object. His false, placid stance broke. He pushed off the counter and began a slow, deliberate walk across the diner floor. The room seemed to shrink with every step he took. Janelle saw him coming. She snatched the card, tucking it swiftly behind her order pad, her face pale. She took 2 quick steps back, creating distance from Darius, from the evidence. Carl arrived, planting himself at the booth's edge. He forced a smile onto his face, a grimace that didn't touch his cold eyes. Everything good over here, folks? His voice was sickly sweet, a parody of hospitality. Just fine, Darius said, not looking up from his coffee. Carl's gaze drilled into Janelle. Table 6 needs refills, Janelle, now. The command was a threat disguised as a reminder. Yes, sir. She was gone in a heartbeat. Carl lingered, his eyes appraising Darius, trying to categorize him, a problem or just noise. Finding no obvious threat, he gave a curt nod and strutted back to his post, leaving a vacuum of dread behind. Darius exhaled slowly. The charade was brittle now, cracking under the weight of the truth. He watched Janelle move through the room, a spectre of efficiency, forever glancing at the storm cloud behind the counter. He saw the young cook's resigned slump. He saw the entire staff operating under a silent collective trauma. This was his legacy. Not a thriving business, but an ecosystem of fear. The numbers on the monthly reports were lies. The profit was blood money, squeezed from the dignity of people like Janelle. His hands, resting on the table, slowly curled into fists, not out of blind rage, but out of a focused, cold resolve. The anger was there, a furnace in his chest, but he banked it. Emotion had ruined good things before. This required precision. This required finality. He waited until Janelle vanished into the kitchen once more. Then, with a calm that felt surgical, he slid out of the booth. The diner didn't fall silent. The clatter of plates continued, the low murmur of conversation. But a shift occurred. The staff felt it. Eyes lifted from tasks. The dishwasher paused, a plate in hand. The cook at the window stopped his frantic motion. They watched the stranger in the cap stand up, not to leave, but to move with purposeful steps toward the heart of their fear. Carl was behind the counter, meticulously polishing a spotless coffee machine, feigning busyness. He didn't look up until Darius was 3 feet away.
Carl.
The manager turned, the fake customer service smile already sliding onto his face. Yeah? Food not right? No, Darius said, his voice flat, carrying in the suddenly quiet room. We need to talk. Carl's smile faltered. About what? Darius let the question hang for a beat, letting the silence press down. About the way you've been running my diner. Carl's smile vanished, wiped clean. He straightened up, puffing out his chest, trying to reclaim the high ground. "If you got a complaint, there's a form at the register. I'll handle it." "I'm handling it now," Darius said. His tone was quiet, but it carried a finality that cut through the diner's background noise. Carl leaned forward, dropping his voice to a conspiratorial growl. "Listen, buddy, I don't know what that waitress has been filling your head with, but she's a drama queen, always has a story. My job is to keep this place tight, and people like her don't like rules." "People like her," Darius repeated softly. "You mean a single mother working 2 shifts to feed her son?" Carl's jaw twitched. "You have no idea how lazy these people can be. You let them breathe, they'll steal you blind." Darius took a half-step closer, closing the distance. "By stealing their tips first?" The color drained from Carl's face, leaving a sickly pallor. "That's a system," he spat, defensive. "I distribute the tips based on performance." "I'm sure you do," Darius said, his voice dropping even lower, a blade of ice. "Right into your own pocket." Carl's composure shattered. "Who the hell are you to accuse me? Get out of my diner." "Your diner?" Darius asked. He didn't raise his voice. He let the question sit, let the wrongness of the pronoun hang in the air. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. Not for money. He slid out his driver's license, then a folded, official-looking document. He placed them on the counter, facing Carl. "My name is Darius Holloway," he said, each word measured heavy as stone. "The name on the business license, the name on the lease, the name on every supplier contract. This isn't your diner, Carl. You work for me, or rather, you did." Carl stared at the ID, his eyes darting between the photo and Darius's face. Denial, then panic, then a crumbling arrogance flashed across his features. You should have told me you were coming." "I shouldn't have had to," Darius replied. "A good manager doesn't need a warning to do his job with integrity." Carl looked around, finally seeing what Darius had seen all morning. Every employee had stopped. They were all watching. The dishwashers, the cooks, the other servers. They were no longer looking down. They were looking at him. His audience of fear had become his jury. "You're making a huge mistake," Carl blustered, but the power had bled from his voice. "Fire me, and this place falls apart in a week. These people need a firm hand." "They needed a leader," Darius corrected him, his voice rising now, filling the space. "You gave them a tyrant. You punished a woman for being good at her job. You stole the kindness strangers tried to give her. You used fear as a management tool." He took one last step, now behind the counter in Carl's space. "You are a poison in this place." Carl stumbled back, hitting the wall of shelves. There was nowhere to go. Darius spoke the words cleanly, clearly for everyone to hear. "You're fired, effective immediately. Get your things and get out of my building." Silence. Absolute, profound silence. It was the sound of a spell breaking. For 5 long seconds, Carl didn't move. He searched Darius's face for a bluff, for weakness, and found none. He saw only resolve, and beneath it, a cold, simmering anger that promised no second chances. His eyes darted to the staff. Janelle had emerged from the kitchen, her hand pressed to her mouth, but found no allies, only witnesses. The intimidation that had been his currency was worthless here. With a muttered curse that lacked all conviction, Carl yanked his jacket from a hook. He shoved past a busboy, shoulder-checking him, a final petty act of dominance. The bell above the door rang out, not its usual soft chime, but a sharp, violent jangle as he slammed it behind him. The sound echoed, then faded, and in its wake a new sound emerged, a collective, shuddering exhale. It was as if the entire diner had been holding its breath for a year and was just now remembering how to breathe. Darius stood behind the counter, the place Carl had claimed as his throne. He let the stillness settle. He looked at the faces turned toward him, shock, disbelief, a dawning, cautious relief. Then his eyes found Janelle. She was frozen in the kitchen doorway, one hand still on the swinging door. Her other hand was clenched in her apron. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks, but they were different from the tears of fear. These were tears of release, of a weight being lifted so suddenly it left her dizzy. She walked toward him, her steps unsteady. The room watched her. When she stopped a few feet away, she just stared, her mind struggling to reconcile the man in the cap with the man who had just wielded such absolute authority. "Did you—" Her voice was a raw scrape. "Did you really just—" "He's gone, Janelle," Darius said, his own voice gentler now. "He's not coming back." "But you're a customer," she whispered, the logic of her world still shattered. Darius reached up and took off the baseball cap. He ran a hand over his hair. It was a simple gesture, but it transformed him. The disguise fell away. "I'm not just a customer," he said. "Janelle, my name is Darius Holloway. I own this diner." The words landed. He saw them sink in, saw the confusion in her eyes crystallize into stunned understanding. Her gaze swept over him, then around the room she knew so well, as if seeing it for the first time. "You own it," she repeated, not a question, but an absorption of a new reality. "I do, and I came here today because I felt something was wrong. I needed to see it with my own eyes, not read a sanitized report." A sob broke from her then, a sound of pure, unguarded emotion. She pressed her palms to her eyes. "I thought I was going crazy," she wept. "I thought it was me, that I was too weak, too sensitive. Every day he made me feel like I was the problem." "You were never the problem," Darius said, his voice firm with certainty. "You were the strength holding this place together while he tried to break it apart." She wiped her face, embarrassed, but the tears kept coming. "I have a son. He's 5. I needed this job so bad. I couldn't risk it." "I know," Darius said. He reached into his inner jacket pocket and pulled out a plain white envelope. It was thick. "This is for you." She stared at it, wary. "What is it?" "Something you've already earned 10 times over." Hesitantly, Janelle took the envelope. Her fingers fumbled with the flap. When she peeked inside, her breath hitched. Cash, more than she made in 2 weeks, enough to create a buffer against the world, to breathe without the immediate chokehold of panic. She looked up at him, her eyes swimming. Why would you do this?" "Because you held on when no one was holding you up," Darius said simply. "Because you showed up, scared but standing for your boy. This isn't charity, it's back pay. For every tip he stole, for every hour of peace he took from you." She clutched the envelope to her chest, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The other employees had gathered closer now, forming a loose circle. The young cook, the dishwasher, the other server. Their faces were open maps of shared pain and newfound hope. Darius turned to address them all, his voice rising slightly to reach every corner of the quiet room. "This ends now," he said, "all of it. The fear, the threats, the stolen tips. That man represented a failure of mine, a failure to pay attention, to listen to what wasn't being said in reports. That failure stops today." He walked out from behind the counter, standing among them. "This diner is supposed to be a home, for you who work here and for the people who walk through that door. Starting right now, we rebuild it that way, together." He looked at Janelle. "You have a place here for as long as you want it, a fair wage, and every single tip you earn is yours. No one will ever take it from you again." He looked at the cook. "Your kitchen. You run it. You tell me what you need." He looked at the young dishwasher. "Your work is essential. It will be respected." It wasn't a grand speech. It was a series of promises, direct and human, and it was more than they had dared to hope for in a long, long time. The next morning, the sun hit the diner windows differently. The light seemed cleaner, sharper. Darius arrived first, unlocking the door himself. He didn't. The day unfolded not with perfection, but with peace. Laughter, tentative at first, echoed from the kitchen. Janelle joked with a regular. The pace was steady, not frantic. The air had lost its metallic taste of dread. At one point, Janelle approached Darius as he helped restock napkin holders. "I don't think you understand," she said quietly. "What you did, you changed everything." Darius shook his head. "No, you all held the line. I just finally showed up to relieve you." She didn't argue. The truth was in the unclenching of her hands, in the calm focus in her eyes as she took an order. As the day wound down, Darius felt the unfamiliar warmth in his chest where the cold weight of failure had been. It was pride, not in a dramatic rescue, but in the quiet, courageous act of correction, in choosing to see and then to act. The lesson wasn't in the firing, it was in everything that led to it and everything that came after. Power given to the wrong hands doesn't just corrupt, it infects. It poisons the well for everyone who drinks from it. Fear is a silent language, and when it becomes the primary dialect of a workplace, it drowns out dignity, creativity, and hope. But courage has a whisper that can eventually shout down the loudest bully. Sometimes courage looks like a single mother showing up for another double shift. Sometimes it looks like a quiet observation from a corner booth. It is often not loud or dramatic. It is the decision to endure, and then the decision to no longer endure. Darius learned that a business is not its profits. It's its people. The numbers on a spreadsheet are dead things. They don't tell you about the tremble in a server's hand, or the silent cry behind a dishwasher's eyes. Leadership isn't about control. It's about stewardship. It's about creating a space where people can work without sacrificing their humanity to do so. In the weeks that followed, the diner transformed. The repairs he'd long postponed got done. The torn booth was reupholstered. But the real change was in the atmosphere. The staff began to talk, to suggest, to own their roles. Janelle was promoted to shift lead. Her son's drawings appeared on the fridge in the back office. The nightmare of Carl became a stark, dark chapter, a reminder of what happens when vigilance sleeps. But the story that remained was one of resilience, of a community, broken, deciding to mend itself. Here is the heart of it, the truth LostBlack exists to explore. The world is full of unseen battles. The strongest people are not always the ones with the loudest voices or the most authority. Often they are the ones who carry entire worlds on their backs and still show up day after day with a kindness that hasn't been extinguished. They are the Janelles, in 1,000 different places, wearing 1,000 different uniforms. And sometimes, all it takes to turn the tide is for one person to truly see them, not as a function, not as a cost on a ledger, but as a human being, to stand beside them, not above them, to listen to the silence between their words. That is where real change begins, not in grand gestures, but in the daily deliberate choice to respect the dignity of those around you, to build havens, not prisons, to be a source of stability, not fear. If this story found a place in you, if it reminded you of a battle you've fought, or sparked a need to see the battles others are fighting, then it has done its work. The most powerful stories are mirrors. We tell these stories at LostBlack because they matter. They are the dark soil where real human truth grows. They are uncomfortable, necessary, and ultimately about the light that can break through when someone has the courage to lift the veil. Share this story if it meant something. Let it be a conversation. Let it be a reminder. And if you want to walk with us into more of these raw, emotional human spaces, hit subscribe. We'll be here, telling the stories that need to be heard.